Well, hello, creatives community. Oops. And kind folks, welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and we are continuing John Wick week. And of course, we cannot have this conversation without talking about um bits and pieces of all four movies. So be aware that there may be some spoilers, or at least some spoilers in terms of details about any number of the movies. So spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. But this is also a tabletop role playing game show. So thank you very much for joining us. We are going to talk about John Wick and the things within the world building of John Wick, and we're going to steal it. We're going to borrow heavily. We're going to use this as our creative fuel to consider how to use this for our fantasy gaming. Mind you, you don't need to relegate it to just fantasy, but I took about 5 minutes and I wrote down some notes that I think are relevant for the world in John Wick because the two greatest things out of the John Wick series, of course, is Keanu Reeves kicking ass and the world of the Continental and the world beyond that with the coins and the markers and tickets and things like that. So, yeah, oh yeah. Mike's like tonight on HBO Live, John Wick versus Jason Bourne, the fight of the century. Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so here we have. Let me bring up some of our traits so we can get this started real soon here. And I thought we would talk about. I don't like my captions. I really don't. Hmm. Let's get that out the way. All right. So here I thought we would. There are some notes and little intricacies in the world of John Wick, and I thought we would talk about them and how we can use them for our games. And it's because this is the Seat of the Pants studio, I didn't really give it much thought until I start writing some notes down, and I was like, wait a minute, this actually is very role playing game centered. Okay, so our first note here is the high table. Um, the high table is basically you, well, as described in the movies, there's like 12 crime families, and they are at the high table. And what's cool about using the high table for our fantasy is that in the movies, we never even see who is on the high table. We get an idea of, I guess there was a character named Santino that was going to be coronated and to become a member of the high table. We have in number four, there's a character who, if they're able to eliminate John Wick, can move up into the high table. And the great thing about this high table concept is it it leaves and sends a message to the your players and the characters in the world that there are these powerful entities and we know who they and what they are about. So you could have I don't know, if you pick 12 different creature types, they could each have um a master level individual or family at the very highest level, and they can represent, the bad guys, right? Like there's a dragon, or dragon chromatic dragons are at the high table, and then you could have I don't know, demons and devils at the high table and all. Like you could basically state up front in this underworld, um your enemies, without having to hide, without having to have subterfuge. No, 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 no. Sure, the regular population doesn't know, but your players and your player characters know who and what they are, and they don't necessarily need to be an individual. It could be your high table need not be singular. Your high table could be made up of any number of bad of people with bad intentions, even ones that stretch across realms where they might not have an interest with each other, like dragons and liches and vampires and aberrants and giants and so on and so forth. Mike says you could literally run a monk story akin to the assassin story of John Wick. Yep, the high table could be the final order, a group of elite martial artists who decide whether or not you're allowed to start your own temple or monastery. Yeah, and says you could pull the same routine with sorcerers, wizards. Exactly, right? And I think the great thing about this idea of the high table is, you have a there's a definite, um there is a my mind is going with this. You state the stakes up front as to what challenges the player characters are going to encounter, because you've already stated who the enemy is, what they're about, and then we start to go into some of the rules that they have, right? Like, for example, Mike, you said, like, whether it could be wizards or, martial artists or anything of that nature, and whether they're allowed. And straight up front, you have your player characters, and there's a council of wizards, right? I go back to the council of seven, and the player characters whenever they confront enemies, whenever they're challenging, they can just point directly to this so-called, air quotes, high table, and go, oh, they're on our back again. They're constantly sending, enemies after us. They're here, we're fighting their lieutenants. How is it they were able to realize where we were at? Because of the high table's power, right? You basically said it straight up front. It's the Star Wars Empire, right? Everybody hates the Empire. We already know they're the bad guys, and we don't need to have subterfuge as to who's causing the downfall of society. No, it's them. There's no question about it. It's them. The End King says, if you want to be, like a global or multiversal syndicate, you could combine monk orders, wizard sects, devil clans into one organization, like a web or a mesh. Exactly. Oops. Like you mentioned there at the, End King, you, this could be a perfect excuse to link, enemies that normally don't have a relationship with each other. Wizards orders, devils. Um, uh, I'm trying to think of some other big bad guys in fantasy gaming. You could have, shape changers and dragons, and yeah, they all have they're a giant organization that where they have a tenuous relationship. And why does the Lich have, I don't know, demons as lackeys? Because they're part of the high table. Why does the dragon have an undead army? Because they're part of the table, right? Right? Like, why does the why do the are the fire giants working with the, um I don't know, frost giants? Because they're part of the table. And I think this would be a great way to have to, like, mix and match enemies that don't normally operate together, but because they are part of a multiversal, enemy organization, of course they work together, or at least they work together to go against you. They may not want to work together with each other normally, but you player characters decided to throw a monkey wrench in their, operations, so now they are working together. Mike says vampires have a similar set of rules and organization in World of Darkness, so you could rip that off too. Yeah, yeah. Hey, these are the rules we abide by. We aren't animals. We portent ourselves to be, civil, and this is how we're going to work. Yep. Mike says, riffing on that, End King, you could have a dark organization of almost every class who act like a collective affecting world politics and such. Yep, absolutely. And yeah, Yankee says, "Oh my God!" So we could circle around and give a reason for the classic, yeah, the classic, mixed, up dungeon ecology. Yep, bugbears hang out with spiders and gelatinous cubes. Exactly. And listen, it doesn't need to be permanent. This could be a tenuous relationship, but yeah, why does the dungeon have a room with skeletons in it, and then another room with a couple of bugbears, and then another room with, I don't know, rugs of smothering, and then another room? It's because they're all members or allies or agents of, of the high table. So for my next, this goes into what you're talking about there, the End King. My next note are emissaries and messengers. Throughout the John Wick series, we see titled individuals show up, emissaries, messengers, agents, and some are just are gun toting, knife wielding martial artists, right? But others are just, are just messengers. They are the voice of our bad guys. And one of the difficult things in a lot of fantasy and role playing is introducing your big bad, because a lot of times we want to have, as creators and dungeon creators, we want to have a conversation. Our PCs have a conversation with our big bad, but the minute your big bad stands in front of your PCs, it's an instant fight. Guaranteed one of your player characters is going to interrupt the conversation to want to assassinate the bad guy from first level. But with so many emissaries and messengers in the John Wick world, we get a chance to have a conversation with the high table without the high table ever being there. So, hey Z, so I hear you. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh wow, funny, funny, funny. Yeah, Z says 20 in the high table, 20 levels, easy math. Yep. Yeah, yeah, and then you could gate everything behind like creature types or class types or something like that. Like you're fighting the members of the high table that are oozes or something. But in John Wick, we have adjudicators, uh, harbingers, different titles and names for individuals that come along and basically relay information to John Wick and the wider world. You've been excommunicated, excommunicado, right? We have titles taken from uh, Latin and ancient Greece and the Catholic Church and all that. And what's great about these emissaries and messengers is the fact that yes, your player characters may want to kill the messenger, but that doesn't kill the message. These individuals, usually non combatant, can walk around this world and deliver messages from maybe there are 20 different levels of messengers, right? I'm an emissary, I'm an envoy, I'm a harbinger, I am a judicant, I'm an archon, I'm a justicar, right? And each of these Ooze high table, the hunger pool. Yeah. Although maybe the ooze is pretty smart. Maybe they're more like Gleek or something like that. Um, yeah, they're all together because they're Oubliex. I don't know if you guys know the creature, the vast creature Oubliex. Oh, you're so silly, N King. Schrodinger Zamara. If Zamara makes noise and is alone, do we hear it? Of course we do. Yeah, they're all together in a dungeon because Oubliex pretending to be everyone all the time. So the the emissaries and messengers idea, of course, is it works both ways, right? The player characters could talk or send a message to the emissary and say, "Hey, you go back and tell so and so to kiss my ass," right? Um, and of course, killing the messenger again. The messenger, like in a number of movies, especially in John Wick, I'm thinking of The Usual Suspects or something. It's like, yeah, you could kill me, but that doesn't change what what the heck is going to happen next. And it also means that there's a witness to the action, right? So if the players understand that the messengers are just there to deliver the message, maybe that messengers is like, holy shit, like did they just like wreck a dragon in like 2 rounds? I gotta go back and tell the bosses, right? So there's a lot of that. And also with the messengers and emissaries, you can establish tension by putting a mechanical countdown timer, right? Like the player characters, listen, you must accomplish this task or leave this region or something like that. And if not, as an emissary, as an envoy, as a justicar or what have you, it is my job to then let them know that the here comes the pain, right? And so that um when the player characters are understand, hey, we've got an hour to get this done, and if we don't, a portal's going to open up and a bunch of rabid slotty are coming after us. We've got to get to the top of the mountain before they come, because that's just going to complicate our mission. Then we'll get into minions, crunchies, and mooks. Okay. So the End King says, so then clerics and paladins could be part of this organization, given all the religious language. Who knows if gods are actually involved or not? And of course, the high table, you can establish your own. I'm not suggesting that you even call it the high table. What I'm suggesting is you can straight up front say, hey, listen, PCs, you know that there's an evil organization. There are individuals involved in the organization. They have a ton of resources. You know who they are, what they're about. Now go out there to the in the great wide world and things. Yeah, Oubliex. Yeah, well, Oubliex is very smart. Hell, I've used one as a crime lord, so it fits. Their name was Forget Me Not. Yeah, Mike's. Yeah, absolutely. Mike's also said Fiend High Table, the Horned League. Exactly. Right. And mind you, they don't again, what if your high table is made up of all the beings of the um, lower planes? I remember Slotty being part of it, not just demons and devils, not just those kind of fiendish creatures, but I remember daemons, 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 um, Slotty, and I can't remember the other. Um, this is from second edition. This is from advanced D&D. I can't remember the other classifications, but there were ones for each of the alignments, evil alignments, chaotic alignments, and in between those for Planescape. And I can't remember. You yeah, Yugoloths would make great assassins. Yep. Horn League is always giving the high table point. But boom. Yeah. Yeah, Yugoloths would make great assassins. Yeah, Slotty hanging around doing doing their thing. So now we get into my little third comment here. I mean, third detail here, and that's minions and crunchies. So minions, crunchies, and mooks. Okay, so John Wick gets to get a pretty high body count, and I really wish they would bring back. Yeah, Mike. Thank you very much for that. I really wish they would bring back in gaming, although they don't really need a rule for this. The idea, the minion rule. The minion rule was you can use any number of creatures for any reason, just give them one hit point. So, and then if you have to make saving throws, the saving throw don't vary the saving throw. They either all make it or they all miss it and they're taken out. You can even make it even more simple and just go, listen, if you hit one, they're just taken out. Um, don't do fuzzy math with the using minions and crunchies and cannon fodder kind of thing. Don't use fuzzy math. Like if they all have one hit point and you allow blow through, like for example, someone does 30 points of damage, then they just take out 30 enemies, right? Don't go, well, they only have one hit point and it does damage blow through, so that means I get to put 29 points to something else. But since I kill 30 enemies and I've done 30 points to each one of them, that means I get to do an extra 29. No, 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 no. That's not how it works. But it does make somebody seem like a badass because even a character that has a dagger that does 1d4 damage and maybe they get a +1 or +2 to the damage, that means they get to kill at least what is it, three to six. If they get a +2, so it'd be 3 to 6 enemies in just one swipe with a dagger. Death Angel Saddle says you like the minion thing from 4E? Well, it existed long before that. But yes, fourth edition was the closest thing to Dungeons and Dragons that we had at the time. But there are minion rules in plenty other games. Feng Shui's the closest one. Hong Kong Action Theater was another game that I have that has a minion rule in it. As a matter of fact, in Feng Shui, they had a rule that said any 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 being that was unnamed was a minion. Basically, the minute you hit them, they're out. And you get to describe how badass you are when you take them out. If they have a name, then they run by character rules. So it's the reason why like the scientist that was working on nuclear codes never gets killed in the gunfire, but all the specially trained armored soldiers get shot up, right? Even though the scientist ducks behind the table, the scientist never dies because they've got a name. It's silly, but makes a sense. Mike says brings up devils, demons, daemons, um, demodads, Yugoloths, hags, succubi. Yeah, I think now there's like chain devils, which kind of don't fit in as devils or something. And there's all kinds of stuff. Um, Mike says it has a good purpose. I've used it to start a 5e campaign. Nothing builds confidence in new players like mowing down goblins and kobolds without rolling damage. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. You just and listen, this is a great time to have your players involved. Like when the player says, "Did I take him out?" Yeah. Not only did you take him out, tell me how you did it. Right? You could, and this allows the players to do the whole like I roll across the table, I swing on the chandelier, I shoot an arrow through the throat of one person and it goes into the eye of the next one. I kick out, break the kneecap of the one and then punch him in the jaw and then grab him and grapple. Do the whole thing. Do the whole let this minion rules let the players go wild. Now, let's be clear on this. You almost need to tell your players that they are minions. Um, as a matter of fact, as spoken by the actual directors of the John Wick series, in the first movie, if you take a look at the first movie, there's a scene where John Wick walks into like a nightclub or something, and the bad guys are all wearing the classic like shiny shark skin suits, and many of them are wearing red shirts, and they did that on purpose. It was the red shirt thing, right? Like let your play, put let your minions wear red scarves or masks or a ring or a medallion that's red, right? Like let it. I mean, it's a game, okay? And there's no need to hide it from your players. So if you're going to use like minions, crunchies, mooks, cannon fodder, and all that kind of stuff, and one group of ice devils are minions, but another one is the actual commander of them, sure, yeah, just put red on them and be done with it. Mike, so the Ed King says, so a monk with flurry of blows, it would be like Bruce Lee versus the karate school. Oh, hell yes. Hell yeah. And you, divorce, you're going to have to relax your imagination, divorce yourself from this doesn't make sense. This is action. This is over the top cinematic ability for your players to just wreck shop. Leaving enough dead bodies to stand on top of. There's a 10-foot pile, right? This is where you do it. Death Angel Shadow says, interesting. 4E is what made Mrs. Death and me stop playing all TTRPGs for nearly 10 years. Uh, oh, that's a shame. Oh, man. Sorry about that, Death Angel Shadow. Um, mm, 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 mm. Man, wow. The Ed King says 40 had a lot of really good ideas, great ideas. The problem is it had all those great ideas at the same time and it threw out everything else. Yep, it's like suddenly drinking tomato juice. Yeah, yeah. It's like imagining your favorite meal plus your favorite drink, maybe your favorite appetizer, and then putting it in a blender. It's one thing to have your favorite meal; it's another to actually drink it, right, as a Slurpee. Uh, the Mike says the minion rule gives weight and drama to the first time an arrow hits a hobgoblin and it grimaces, breaks off the arrow and attacks. Now the players know it's on. Exactly. So there is a difference between minions and your named characters, your characters that use all the rules of armor class and blah blah blah. I mean, technically the armor class would be your difficulty to take out the minions, but this would mean that hey, the hobgoblins do have 30 hit points. Ooh, this is a real thing, right? So yes, absolutely. Now, as we move on with some of the details here, we have the underworld and exotic rooms. Even in the world of John Wick, we have the mirror room, we have the glass room, we have strangely uh, divorced from all physical combat nightclubs where people are continuing to dance even though there's dead bodies dropping all around them. um, Exotic places, location, all throughout the John Wick series. We see him travel the world. When he does travel the world, he goes into buildings and structures that have exotic um, twists and turns, whether they are multi-level glass and plexiglass rooms, whether there are mirrored rooms, whether they are multi-leveled. He goes literally down into the sewer systems and the underworld. He has fights in hotels, on the streets of France, and goes into the desert. And someplace in the Middle East or whatever. But yeah, you can't ignore exotic locations. And not only just not ignoring exotic locations, but it's part of the world. So having your bad guy in a glass room because they can see and I don't know, what was it, 100-inch widescreen TV behind them randomly playing thing. I don't know what that was about, but it existed, right? He has fights in libraries and museums and on the streets of New York and things like that. So having exotic locations is definitely part of it, and definitely having rooms where your big bad, maybe one or multiples of your big bad are like hiding out or waiting for your NPCs to come. I mean, for your PCs to come, surrounded by NPCs. Definitely have to have that. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah. Excuse me. Mm-mm-mm. Um, Another note is civility in the face of violence. This is a huge thing in the John Wick series. Even when John Wick is having the most brutal attack with what was it, in the second movie, he's having a fight with an individual he respects, which was a Common. I can't remember Common's name. Um, but in it, he was having a pretty nasty battle with a guy, and they're having a civil conversation. Hey, John, you're working? Yeah. Is are you having success? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, oh man, you killed my ward. I'm gonna have to take you out. But then when they fall through the doors of the Continental, again, civility in the face of violence, they end up having a drink together, right? So even the Continental represents neutral ground and consecrated ground, right? And in a fantasy world, this could actually have a mechanical effect. It could be a location of anti-magic or under a bless or any other kinds of mechanical arcane abilities. But in John Wick, there wasn't anything mechanical about it. It was just, hey, listen, no violence on continental grounds. And if the players are willing to accept that, maybe there are places in and around the your setting where the bad guys and the good guys can actually have a conversation by having a drink or a meal together, or having cigars, or just meeting together in a place that is air quotes consecrated, where there isn't any violence, and letting the players know that, hey, listen, if you start violence, that means everybody can come after you. Like, this isn't just, hey, it's me and the our enemy. It's me and all the other enemies as well, right? Like, if the PCs are going against a vampire lord, and the vampire lord's got, like, the vampire spawn and some undead and some shadow agents, and the PCs are like, you and me, vampire, we're going to go after each other, and then you decide to kill the vampire on consecrated ground. Maybe that draws in the dragons and the giants and the aberrants and the oozes and the plant creatures and the I don't know, but you know what I mean. Like, that could be, and to let the players know in a session zero, this is a real thing. Like, if you do this and you decide to have, you know violence on a consecrated ground kind of thing, yeah, it could be like, it could be the thing that sets off um a cascade effect of downfall of the player characters. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, the high table put those dragonborn in. It was part of. Yeah, I see. So, N King says, so if the PCs are or were part of this organization, is this technically an evil campaign? It absolutely could be. Why not? Why the hell not? That's, you absolutely could do that, right? Like, there's no reason. John Wick. Let's be clear, we don't want to admit it, but John Wick was a pretty bad guy. I mean, he's his origin. We meet him literally after he retired, when he laid the bodies as the foundation to allow a crime lord to rule. Right? Like, he's not a good guy. He's just more good than everybody else. Maybe he has a lot of honor, and people trust him because he does have a code of ethics. And if it wasn't for his wife giving him a puppy, he wouldn't really have much of a. Um, it was a it reawakened the dead part of his soul. So yeah, evil campaign. Heck yeah, yeah. Mufa says a yeah. Mufa says putting your big bad evil guy in a protected zone can be a good way to introduce them without the fear of the party. Yeah, wizard polymorphing them or something and ruining your plans. Exactly. Yeah, Death Angel says, I guess I need to see one of these John Wick movies someday. Yeah. Now we're talking very general. So this listen, our conversation isn't spoiling a John Wick movie. It's an experience unto itself. Got to start at number 1, which is why like the fourth movie it just kept ramping up. It's one of the few series that that is so good. All right, so let's go on to the next one. Yeah, civility in the face of violence. Um, Continue to role play, even when the characters are battling the bad guys. We don't have to get top headed looking down at our character sheets and just going like, I'm going to roll initiative and I'm going to attack. Have the bad guys have conversations, while they're attacking in between die rolls and things like that. Like, we can stop this now. Spellcast, slash sword. This doesn't have to end this way. Blah 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 blah. We can make deals. We're civilized being. Role playing doesn't have to stop. And in the John Wick movies, despite all the battling that he does, and he kills a lot of people. I think by the fourth movie, it crosses the 430 people. I think he kills. But yeah, this is Angel says, no kidding. I haven't seen any of them. Oh, you have special treat, dude. Special treat. You and the fam, all the little chillins, bring them around. Let them learn. No, I'm joking. It's extremely violent. You don't want children watching it. But yes, um, style over substance. You gotta have the cool style, the look, the feel, um, the opulence. Except for the Bowery King down in the sewer systems, everything else is pretty much like high class, crystal, silver, gold, silks, um, um, tailored suits, and things like that. So in a fantasy realm, being able to use all of that, like, you've got to be dressed for the occasion. You have to act the way, you're going into high class locations. Yeah, throw a lot of that in there. Zamar says, session concept. The month's 12 of the most powerful individuals in the realm have been brought down to 9 in what can only be assumed as an act of betrayal. Okay, all right. Here we go. Um, here we go. February, September, and July have been murdered. I love this. And August injured. The only possible culprit is one of the decades, a break in a long-standing unspoken rule. Knowing that power hates a vacuum, it has been decided by the remaining decades that the one who figures out who the betrayer is and ultimately and eliminates them may take their place in the realm. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Will that be you? Will you survive the bloody year? Will you? Will you? Will you? I don't have any music. I love it. See, yeah, yeah. And Mars says, yeah, it changes references to decades to months. Yep, yep, yep. Yeah. Exactly. I love it. And talking about the evil campaign, the player characters might want to be part of this like high table concept kind of thing, right? Yeah. Yeah. He does now I think the directors actually went out of their way so that he doesn't say whoa, but he does say guns, lots of guns. He does do that part. Yeah. Uh, Mike says, a monk or assassin organization whose leaders are named after months. Love that. Yeah, yeah, and hey, let's make this a little more arcane, right? So whoever whoever takes over that month, the physical nature of the world changes based on the person who takes the seat at the table for that month. So if an ooze takes over August, that means for the entire month of August, like maybe oozes literally come out of the woodworks, right? When it rains, it doesn't just rain, it's like acid rain. When crops start to die because people start walking through the dry landscape, and a strange sticky substance is coming out of the ground or something. Maybe if the Raven Queen takes over September, all of a sudden the sky seems like it's blotted out, not by clouds, that you can't see the sun, but it's just flocks and flocks of birds everywhere. There could be a literal arcane change in the world based on who sits at the table when, and I think that'd be awesome. The Ant King says, if the heroes ever break up the syndicate, that'll just make sure a lot of smaller factions break off. Court of Owls over here, Kingpin over there, pandemonium everywhere. Hell yeah, hell yeah. So, what's some other notes I wrote down here? Okay, so gotta have style over substance. Gotta make it look good, feel good. Music, dancing, um, expensive dinners, and that kind of thing. Now, in the John Wick world, we have like markers, tickets, and crossing over, which we already talked about the gold coins and how the gold coins are a reputation economy. It's not a value economy, but John Wick has markers and tickets. We have people using the markers with literally blood on the marker. That's a blood oath between two individuals. The tickets to cross over to into the underworld and things like that. There may be no way for your player characters to confront the next individuals that have the seat at the high table, like you were talking about, Z, like a certain month, unless they have a certain passage to cross over. Um, Again, this could be very arcane, where there's literally an overlay of the underworld into the real world. Like maybe for example, PCs go into the inn, they go to get something to eat. There's a back door. If they open up the back door, they walk into the back alley to walk out the building. There's no big deal. But maybe if they have a key and then they use that special key, literal key, to open that door may lead into um you, you know a new realm, a portal to a new world. There could be a world covered by illusion that your average citizens cannot see, but the player characters end up being able to see it. There you could literally do just a physical underworld where the players are able to find um, a location or a doorway down into a subterranean realm. In the old R.A. Salvatore books with Dritz, I believe the very first book, Sojourn, drow elves had levitation, and in the underworld, if you they didn't have steps to allow you to go up into the upper realms of the nobles in the drow, because they would just levitate up, and then so there was no way to get there. Maybe the bad guys are locked away without a marker or a ticket or something to get from one place to another. Maybe the player characters are unable to even interrogate anyone to get information unless they have a coin or a ticket or a medallion or a key or some kind of a bit or bauble or fob that allows them, and to earn them, it might be very dangerous as well. The End King says, if the heroes ever break, yeah, that's it. Mike's like, a monk or assassin's organization's leaders are named after months. I love that too, because in real life, the months have seasons, and they also represent, depending on where you live and who you are in your culture, different months have holidays and things. You could kind of like mix and match who is where. Here in the United States, we have what's a good holiday that's really strange. Thanksgiving. So here in the States, we have Thanksgiving, and in in the month of November, there might be that celebration happening as a normal thing in the background of your world to differentiate each of the months as your campaign goes on. And what a great way to time your long-standing campaign as they get to number 9. If they started in January, they get to number 9, and it's like oh, it's September, we're going into October in our campaign or something like that. That'd be that kind of cool. All right, the last two. Every good thing has a cost, and reputation is an economy. So for every good thing has a cost in the world of John Wick. And I said this would be a bit of a spoiler broadcast. All of the air quotes good people, the ones who have honor, and even though they might be completely violent, a lot of John Wick's allies, it costs them a lot. You have people getting their hands, literally both hands, stabbed through with blades. You have individuals who gave up their eyes to save their families, who have blood oaths to keep their children safe. John Wick literally had a marker that he had to get out of the game and have a life with his wife before she was sick and passed away. Fingers are severed. Individuals, there's a cost. Every good thing has a cost, and as we see the characters, this is what John Wick gets his back burned. I mean, they're when the players are advancing through this world, maybe make it be known. And of course, this is a great reason to get rid of this high table concept, right? Or going with Z's storyline where there's 12 seats and each one represents a month. It might be necessary for the player characters to sacrifice something to advance. Yeah, the End King says the cost makes you think of the Yakuza. This could be a pretty dark world where even seeing someone who's been marked, burned, tattooed, have limbs severed, losing their eyes or an ear, or being branded. Um, um, I'm I don't want to get too torturous, but there may be physical. An individual is walking around with a chain that's around their ankle, and that chain is attached to 100-pound marble stone block, and for all eternity they have to carry around this block of marble everywhere they go, and they're dragging their foot, they're trying to carry it on their back, they're holding it in their arms, and everyone knows that they're punished by the high table, and very few people come up to help them. Maybe a family member or two tries to put it in a wheelbarrow to help them walk around. And you, initially this might not be explained to the player characters, but maybe they find out like, ooh, every time someone steps up against them, they get harmed. I'm going to go to a very old martial arts flick uh, called The Crippled Avengers. I understand it has another name, but initially it's called The Crippled Avengers, and it's old kung fu flick started out with every character standing up to a warlord, and however they stood up to the warlord would punish them. So for example, the warlord came into town, everyone kneeled except for one of the characters, the protagonist in the story, and the warlord says cut off his legs, and he cuts off his legs. And so eventually one person is blinded, one's deafened, one got their legs cut off, one got their hands cut off, one had brain damage, and all of them learned martial arts and became masters. The one who lost his arms ended up having iron arms, he could use them. It was a whole big thing. Anyway, it used to be Kung Fu Saturdays or something like that. Everybody wants Kung Fu fighting. Yeah, awesome. The End King says, so then the Greek gods are part of the high table. This ties into that Medusa from yesterday. Honestly, the directors of the John Wick movie stole a lot of their concepts from Greek and Roman mythology anyway. So the underworld and crossing over and the coins and the whole all of that is taken from mythology anyhow. So, and John Wick was there's a club called the Circle, like Dante's Inferno, and going, the circles of hell and all that kind of stuff. So yes, the John Wick series is actually a real world living embodiment of a dark, tragic hero traveling through the underworld, trying to get his soul back or something like that. So, trying to claw his way back to humanity, claws humanity back. Last note I put down is reputation is an economy. Um, thing. Gold coins do not buy things in the John Wick universe, even though coins are exchanged. Instead, people still pay with things with money. No, we never see anyone pull out a credit card, or although we do get to see some cash burn, but money is still money. What happens in the John Wick universe is that the reputation, his reputation, and the reputation of those around him is an economy. And so, in this John Wick universe, whatever the player characters do, and as their reputation precedes them, so too does it mean that the player characters may need to gain allies or favors or information. And to just go completely murder hobo is not going to get them anywhere. So they may need to make friends, perform services, um, do side quests just to gain favor with a particular group of people. Like, the lizard folk that live in the swamp need help, and the PCs are like, we don't have any reason to help you. You don't know us. We don't owe you, and you don't owe us. But the lizard people, lizard folk might be thinking, all right, listen, we have an issue with the bullywogs, and we need you to solve it. And in return for that, we will uncover a ship that was lost in the swamp or something, because the player characters can't go down that deep in the murkiness of the swamp, or lead them to this ship that's, well, they'll get lost or something. So they do the mission for the lizard people. The lizard folk then go, lead them to this ship. Inside the ship is a treasure chest, which ends up having a marker to allow them to move on to their next level. And oh, guess what, they also have an ally now. And then they have allies with the lizard folk, who keep the crocodiles from attacking the PCs every 1d6 hours or something like that, right? So on and so forth. So yeah, using there are many things where we could use John Wick um, in and around our games. I think I think the John Wick universe, as slick and cool as it is very it's very gameable. I think it's extremely gameable. I think there's a way for us to use the elements in it, such as like John Wick's home is broken into. Maybe the player characters have a place that is a safe haven for themselves, and that safe haven um, that safe haven is demolished because of the bad guys. Um, in the John Wick series, we see him go on a chase. Role playing games don't have very good mechanics for chases, but you could have a rolling combat where the player characters are on vehicles, or like wagons, mounted combat. Maybe they are going down a raging river or something like that. And during that encounter, again, civility in civility in the face of violence could be a way for you to have a chase scene when the bad guys are yelling things at the player characters and yelling other things back at them, and to not stop the role playing part of it. Especially if the player characters feel like they're being overwhelmed, and they run to one of these consecrated locations where there's a safe place for to have a conversation with your bad guys and your heroes together in one room. Or it doesn't even have to be a room, it could be an inn, a room, a church, a theater, or whatever. Mike says, ooh, 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 ooh. There we go. The End King says, I'd be interested in exploring how much of the world is honest in a world like this. How much power does the crown have compared to the syndicate? Exactly, right? Like, in John Wick, we pretty much know that these League of Assassins controls everything, but the rest of the world still operates, right? There's still politics, and people still go about their business. Um, I don't know how people. I mean, do people come home in the evening and go, "Oh, how was your day?" It was all right. I mean, I saw another gunfight, and a guy fighting with a sword, and another person fall off of a building and get run over by a couple of cars. And it's like, oh, so it was boring. Yes, dear, I got home. Yeah, it was boring, right? Like I don't. I mean, it. there was so much gunplay and gun fu and knife fighting and sword fighting in the John Wick universe. I don't know how your average citizen doesn't notice it, but there weren't too many cops called, so you know, there's a lot of Jimmys in the world that turned away and was like, yeah, "So you're working again, John?" Nah, just sorting some things out, right? Mike says, "The high table as a group of warlock patrons or contracts, pacts, agreements, manners, all come into play." Ooh, that's a different way of looking at it. Yeah. Um, soul coins from Avernus come into play. Multiversal, multiplanar contracts come into play. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, why not? I don't know how fun your players would like where they all make warlocks, but you don't have to have everybody play a warlock to have a pact. But you could have what was it in Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica? They made up patrons. You could make up your own patrons, and the player characters might be loyal to one or more of the patrons, or maybe they're fighting to get out from having a devotion to one or more of the patrons themselves. That would be interesting for the players to gain some sort of mechanical advantages to be in alignment or have a contract with one or more of the patrons, knowing that they're actually going up against them in the first place and how that works. I don't know. Yeah, how much of the world is honest in a world like this? I've got a great vocabulary early in the morning. Yeah. Zamar says the pitiful display their weakness. The weak hide their weaknesses with displays of power. The truly powerful hide their power in the shadows. Ooh, ooh, the poet. Z, always the poet. And maybe, just maybe, this might be a good way to introduce very powerful enemies against the players by allowing the players to expose the weaknesses of the bad guys who then turn tail and run even though they seemingly seem like they should be more powerful. So introducing, I don't know, chromatic dragons at first level might seem daunting, but the dragons really probably wouldn't get involved anyway. But maybe they can defeat the dragons in the high table at like sixth or seventh level, not because they kill a dragon, but maybe they expose the fact that the dragons need they can only live here because of a resource, or they understand that they're developing an army against them, or they find something that exposes a weakness um, in their biology or something like that. So yeah, 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 yeah. The pitiful display their weaknesses, and the weak hide their weaknesses with displays of power. Yeah, and the truly powerful hide their power in the shadows. Yeah, it's the um uh the doth protest too much. you know, so n- n- um we have all been to school and grade school and high school and run around our neighborhoods where there's that one kid that brags too much, or there's that one coworker at work that always talks about how much of a man he is, and you're just rolling your eyes like, dude, you're in the closet. I know you because you talk about this too much. You talk about, it's a little, you're going a little overboard with the patting yourself on the back about how good you are about different things, right? And always bragging about it. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, like the End King says, yeah, they find out the dragon is double dealing and they snitch to a syndicate boss. Hell yeah. Yeah. The dragon's like, oop, you told on me. Damn it. Right? I mean, heck, even in the first movie, John Wick takes out the Vigo, I think his name was, that was the head of the Russian mob, by destroying all of his blackmail. He's like, "Oh, you destroyed everything. I had blackmail and recordings and details on people that was priceless, right? It wasn't even the money, even though you missed the money, right? But it was he had information on other individuals, and maybe the high table. That's how they keep their power. They 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 have maybe members of the high table have the true names of pit fiends and baylords, right? They have um, the ability to unmake powerful beings from the outer the from the outer realms or the gyre, so that they have control over mind flayers and intellect devourers and beholders or something. Like, with a word I can unmake you, right? With a thought you can disappear forever, and you're like, okay, we'll follow you now. Right, that may be a thing. That would be pretty interesting. I like that. I like having and the tenuous relationship, the peace that this high table has. Maybe the player characters throw a monkey wrench in it and it's like, nope, you guys don't like each other. We know you don't like each other. Here's a good reason to fight, right? So that may be a thing as well. So yeah. Now tomorrow we're going to continue the John Wick discussion. I think there's more. As I'm talking now, I'm coming up with other ideas. Plus, I like the John Wick movies as well. And yes, the fourth John Wick flick was excellent. Surprising that even the action and the violence could even get to such a level that it I mean, it's just great. So, guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. We're going to talk about this tomorrow. Future Friday. I'm not sure if we're going to continue this on Future Friday or not. Uh, but something came to mind. Yeah, the loss or theft of a book of true names would spark a campaign. Yeah, yeah. Hell's yeah. You've got our true names. Oh shit, right? Yeah, or heck, the PCs steal the true name of the boss that's from hell, right? Doesn't have to be Asmodeus or Asmodeus or whatever, but steals the boss from one of the bosses from hell. That boss doesn't want that information out there, so has to get it back from the PCs before somebody else finds out that their true name is out there and that the other bosses can go get it. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Death Angel. Yeah. We've come to the end. Thank you so much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. That'll be the last comment here for today. We're going to continue the conversation with John Wick. By the way, Shadow and everybody else who hasn't seen those movies, do yourself a favor, check them out. They're pretty good. They're really excellent. There's a reason why I think they live up to the hype. Well, I guess some things could be considered overhyped, but I think they live up to it. So yeah. Ooh, think yeah. Plot twist: Celestials should be at the high table. I think so too. I think so too. Yeah, although we might find out that the Shadow's like, okay, I guess I'll check them out. I suppose. Damn it! I guess I'll pop some popcorn and get an Afghan and curl up at the. No, I'm just joking with you. No, no, no. Do yourself a favor. They're really good movies. They're really good action movies and such. So yeah, yeah. So he says, "Good day to all, and remember." Good day, all, and remember, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies, lovers, closer. Makes it all easier to get the dirt on them for the final confrontation. Yeah, yeah, and no violence on the grounds of the Continental. You guys have a great one. Peace.